Welcome everybody to the Keys to Wisdom channel. As you saw from the first picture there, we're going to be talking about the bullshit conflict in Ukraine. And let me look real fast, see what that picture said. It said, the Ukraine conflict is cooperative warfare. It's not a damn thing other than that. And really, to get to the position of it going, it was total cooperation as well, right? This is long-term cooperative warfare, right? And the people of America, the USA, have been particularly hoodwinked by this cooperation and massive propaganda setup to get us to the point where we're at, right? Historically, in the USA, the anti-war party is the party of the Democrats, right? But because of what they did as they were setting up for this war, right? Everything that happened in 2014 was the United States leading a coup of the rightfully elected leaders in Ukraine and installing a puppet regime that's been in control ever since. And then there was the Crimea was taken in 2014 in response, right? Because the new regime that they put in power in Kiev, Ukraine, were basically declaring all-out war against ethnic Russians, the Russian language, and the Russian-speaking population, right? So, of course, they didn't do anything in 2014, right? Russia just annexed Crimea, and Ukraine didn't even try to fight for it, and nobody, Barack Obama and the rest of the bitches in NATO at the time, never even lifted a finger to try to do anything, right? Why? Because the world was in too good of shape at the time to do anything, right? It wasn't like 2022 when the world was just coming off a completely coordinated effort to destroy all food and energy security in the world, along with to destroy the freedom of speech and freedom of press everywhere in the world, right? We were in really bad shape when the conflict broke out in 2022, so of course they jumped all over it. But going back to 2014, right, that's when both sides made it happen, right? The United States created the coup and the fall of the government in Ukraine, and Russia began to take parts of what was Ukraine, which never should have been, right? The entire makeup of Ukraine in 1991, when the former Soviet Union fell apart, was absolutely unsustainable and ungovernable, right? All Crimea has always been majority ethnic Russians, just like in the East, all majority ethnic Russians, right? It was a setup from there, but in 2014, right, Crimea was taken by Russia, which should have always been Russia, right? It was set up to be a flashpoint all the way going back to 1991. And then some of the other massively dominated by ethnic Russian and Russian-speaking people, the Lugansk and Donetsk republics, right? They broke away from Ukraine right away in 2014, right? Because they're not going to stick with a government who is trying to eradicate the Russian language and ethnic Russian-speaking people and prohibit you from speaking your language and going around and indiscriminately killing and doing basically whatever the hell they wanted to the Russians, right? And that those areas of East Ukraine have never had anything to do with the current Kiev regime, the current government of Ukraine, which does not have any legitimacy, right? It was not a democratic uh, transfer of power in 2014. It was an outright coup toppling the democratically elected government, and all elections in Ukraine from 2014 on, including the one that Zelensky won when he was outright lying about seeking peace with Russia, right? He ran on a platform of peace, right? But none of those elections have any legitimacy because it all began from an illegitimate government that came to power after the coup in 2014, right? There's nothing legitimate about the government in Ukraine whatsoever at all, right? And it's kind of a joke that they have a fucking comedy actor playing the president of Ukraine, right? It's a fucking pure comedy. It's a joke, and the joke's on everybody in the world, whether you're NATO or Russia. But anyways, in 2014, they set all that fucking shit up, right, for later on down the road. Then came the 2016 elections in the United States of America. And Donald Trump was elected president of the United States in somewhat of a surprise victory over the probably heavily favored to win Hillary Rodham Clinton. The only reason Donald Trump won that election in 2016 was because of a racist election that occurred. And that racism was black racism against white people, white women in particular. The only reason that Donald Trump won the presidency was because the black men of the USA refused to come out and support Hillary Rodham Clinton for president anywhere near the level that they got up off their asses and voted for the black man, Barack Obama. Right? So it was that's the only reason. If the black men had got up off their asses and voted for Hillary Rodham Clinton anywhere close to what they did for Obama, she would have won easily. Right? But she lost on the basis of a black racist uh, voting cycle. Right? So it was racism of black people against white people and black males against white females, right? It's racism and feminism, uh, anti-feminists and racists, right? That's the basis of the deal, right? If she had been a white man, a lot more of those black people, black men would have come out and voted for her, right? But she was a white woman, so she got it both ways, right? Black racist and black anti-feminism voting from the black people, right? So she gets in. Then we hear this bullshit lying story, and the media covers this lying story like crazy. All this Russian collusion, Russia influenced election. Donald Trump won because of Russia, all this bullshit, right? And don't come out and tell you the one obvious fucking thing. The only reason she won. The black men in the United States of America are massively racist and massively sexist. That's the only reason she lost, right? That's the only reason Donald won was the racism and sexism from the black male population in the USA. Right, but they gotta blame this shit on fucking Russia, right? All you gotta do is look at the fucking numbers and the results. Look at how many black males voted for Barack Obama. Look at how many black males voted for Hillary Rodham Clinton. There it is. It covers every fucking deficit in every close area where Donald won, right? The reason that Donald was elected was right here in the United States of America. Black racism from black men and sexism from black men. That's it. No other fucking reason. Nothing to do with this Russia bullshit, right? But they played it like this over and over, and when you repeat this lie, the amount of times that it was repeated by liars within the government and liars within the media, a lot of people come to take it as being truthful. Everybody's saying it, right? And the mainstream shit is saying it predominantly, and people still have some belief left, the stupid ones, from long ago, many, many years ago, when our mainstream media was actually a worthy source of information and could legitimately be thought of as telling the truth on stuff that they report on, which is no longer the case, right? And it's ironic, too, that Donald was the one that come out to really take the term fake news and really pump it out, get a lot more people talking about it and recognizing it, because that's what was used against him and used against the people of the United States, right? Everything they fucking reported about Russia influencing the 2016 elections was bullshit. But it really poisoned the Democrat Party in terms of them thinking about Russia, which leads us here into this current time where Joe Biden, after a bunch of absolutely corrupt and criminal even election fucking things happened in 2020 to get him into office, along with a very black racist movement all throughout 2020. It was basically not a full blown, but it was a soft coup committed in the United States of America, right? It was again black racism that influenced the whole 2020 election result, but this time it went the other way, and because they were able to mail every fucking single person ballots out there, and people could harvest them and turn them in and or whatever, right? Joe Biden, who is by far the most hated president in history, who by far had the least amount of actual support going into the race for president in history, right, became the one with the more votes than ever before, right? And even Donald, in losing, right, gained more votes than he did the first time in winning, right? When Barack Obama sought re-election, right, he won, but his amount of votes garnered went down, right? The 2020 election was massively influenced by COVID, which was used to justify all types of basically election tampering and criminal actions in those elections. But it brought us to this point now where Biden is in as president. He's the biggest warmonger on the planet in terms of this Ukraine conflict, right? Pushing it hard, and now the Democrat Party is not there to stand up like they normally would, right? And of course, right, when this shit happened in Ukraine originally, it was Barack Obama and Joe Biden in office, right? That's when it happened, right? That's when the coup that they set up overthrew the country. That's when Crimea got taken by Russia. That's when the eastern parts split away from that fucking coup government that had no legitimacy. They're not going to agree to be part of that, right? And then they started sending weapons in right away, Obama and Biden, that were used for over eight years straight up until 2022 by the Ukrainian government to kill Russian-speaking civilians, indiscriminately bombing and killing, right? Tens and tens of thousands of Russian people were killed by the Ukrainian government over those 8 years, right? So they're sitting back. Russia's supporting those breakaway regions, sending them some weapons and stuff and some manpower. And the U.S. is supporting the coup and sending them weapons and manpower and having them battle in that same fucking eastern Ukraine part that's going on here, right? And setting it up so that both sides have some legitimate claims to not being the most guilty party involved, right? Even here in the United States and all throughout Europe and everywhere where the governments and the press do almost nothing but fucking lying when it comes to Ukraine, right? There's huge amounts of people in the population that know outright and say it outright that everything that was done by the West, the USA, in Ukraine from 2014 on all the way up to 2022, killing all those civilians, starting this conflict, pushing for this conflict, setting up the environment for what we're in right now, was all bullshit and all wrong. It never should have been done, right? They should not have helped overthrow the democratically elected regime in Kiev in 2014. They should not have started sending all of those weapons into Ukraine and have them use those weapons to attack all of those civilians in eastern Ukraine, doing all that killing, right? And also setting up the intake of weapons and training of troops for this eventual conflict, right? They were beginning already in 2014, 2015, right? Before the 2016 election ever happened, right? They were already preparing us for this war and setting everything up. 2016, the whole election thing, that was all about tearing down the resistance, right? You still have some of the progressives, like, I forget that crazy black guy's name, but he's trying to run as like a third party. He's got like a Don King hairdo out. He's actually pretty famous. I just can't remember his name, right? He's out there talking about he's anti-war, right? And some of the, what do they call them, the squad or whatever, right? They got some of these real far progressive, super left-wing, basically terrorists in the USA Congress, right? They include people like AOC and Omar and like Cory Bush, the craziest motherfuckers, right? They're the craziest black reparations supporters, white supremacist fucking speaking fucking type things. Therefore, against wanting to eliminate the fucking police, eliminate bond and bail, eliminate strong sentencing that keeps the worst criminals off the street, right? They're just like, they call themselves progressives, but really they're the other way. They're degenerates, right? They're not progressives because you don't make any progress under them. They're degenerates because everything they want to do is degenerative, right? They're the racists today in the USA, the ones that are attacking all of the white people with the white supremacist bullshit and trying to come out with programs and shit to say, oh, we'll help you if you're a person of color and poor in this fucking city, but if you're poor and you're white, well, fuck you, right? They're doing all this bullshit, right? They're the ones that are actively discriminating against other people. They're all criminals. They're lawmakers, but they're fucking some of the worst criminals in the history of America sitting in our Congress, right? These progressives, but they come out at least once here and put out like a little statement against the war, and then they had to quickly pull it back and whatever, right? Even these people who have always been as anti-war and stuff as there is, right? Because they don't want to see the money like we've sent hundreds of billions of dollars and shit over to Ukraine. They don't want to see it over there. They have agendas for that money here. They want to spend it on reparations. They want to spend it on programs that are racist and discriminate against other segments of society, right? They want to grow government bigger. They want to increase the welfare system that has only fucking destroyed all the people that has ever been on it, right? And they want to build more slums in the cities for really cheap fucking or free housing so that a lot more people will get fucking destroyed and their lives ruined to the point where they're dependent, right? Everybody that lives in these big ass fucking project systems, their lives are destroyed living there, but they become permanently dependent on those Democrat scumbags for handouts because they've lost all ability to provide for themselves and move forward in life, right? Those places are just nothing but big giant fucking ruts. But anyway, so and these people, right? You can't depend on them now to be anti-war, right? Because it's the Democrat Party leading it, and then the Republican Party that's been more war hawkish, right? Traditionally in the U.S., right? There's still a very large amount of them that are involved in this, so you have no real group of political opposition to these wars. You have a few small Republicans here and there, mostly talking against it independently, and even the most anti-war Democrat groups of the progressives can't even come out and say what they want to say and what their constituents want to say, right? Because when they try to do that, they have to walk it back, say, "Oh, that was a mistake. We shouldn't have said that." All this bullshit, right? But they've had to walk back on their values and also walk back on everything that they said to their constituents to get elected, right? Most of the shit that they said they would do and want to do with the money is illegal criminal bullshit, but that's what they told them people. They said, we're going to do everything we can to fight for these dollars to be spent on you people. Programs for you. Free this for you. Free that for you. Whatever, right? And this war is entirely counter to everything that they ran on, everything that they said, everything that their constituents expect them to fight for. Right now, they got to step to the side, so there's no opposition. Right? So it's got us into this spot here now where the media is all pro-war, doing nothing but lying about it. They won't tell the truth about the kinds of things that Ukraine has done throughout this war, the kind of losses that they have. Everything is just propaganda fucking shit, right? Which would be shit that you would expect if the USA was a direct combatant in the war. And really, we are, right? Because we're the ones that are mainly leading everything and leading the full cooperation with Russia that has gone on, right? And then this war starts out here. And Russia calls it a special military operation, right? And they intentionally send in way less troops than you would probably need to do a real deal takeover of Ukraine, right? If they had came harder, they could have toppled Ukraine in the 3 days, right? Even you have all these kind of like anti-war generals and different shit, like, or Colonel McGregor, not generals. If they get that high up, they're probably too corrupt to ever come back, right? If you hear General Petraeus talk about the fucking war, all you hear is nothing but a fucking liar on everything. But I think there was statements out from Milley saying he didn't expect Ukraine to last a week. There was McGregor, all these other motherfuckers, all kinds of people were saying, right, we don't We don't expect Ukraine to have absolutely any chance, right? Because if Russia comes for real, with real might, and really tries to topple Ukraine, they could do it literally within a week, right? They could have sent airstrikes. They could have knocked out the entire command structure, the leadership structure, everything of Ukraine. They could have just fucking wiped them, and they could have came right in, took care of everything, right? But they didn't. They came in just soft enough, and then there was a little cooperation in terms of having some talks, right? Which again, they were saying, "Oh yeah, we'll sign some peace deals and we'll respect the Russian people's rights to do this, that, what." It was just basically a fucking cooperation thing to cause a little pause, right? And not enough troops sent in the beginning to fucking take it over, right? But they did take a large section of land in the south, right? Which would give them grounds then to fight over, right? Afterwards, right? But there's a big cooperation fucking thing on there. Russia did not try hard to take it over, and then their little talking bullshit was total cooperation to give just enough excuse for why Russia didn't quickly topple them like everybody that expected it, right? Because everybody fucking knew going in that Russia had full capability to knock them fucking over quickly if they wanted to, right? But they didn't want to. They didn't come in and they did their little negotiation, their little pause, they fucking pulled back, right? Set up for what they have now, which is this long, grinding, long-term fucking conflict. It's completely cooperative warfare still to this point, right? But it also gave hope. And now the lying media and the lying governments everywhere could come out and start saying, "Oh, there's hope. Russia can be beaten there," right? Which even right now, right, going very limited force and not even coming close to trying to win the war or do their best, right? Ukraine cannot do anything to Russia. Russia's overwhelmingly more powerful, and doesn't matter what kind of weapons get sent in from the NATO countries, right? Especially all the junk fucking garbage that they have sent in, because it's cooperation on both sides, right? Both sides are using up old inventories of the oldest garbage fucking shit in their little cooperated on conflict zone, right? So they can get some value out of that, which is dead common fucking people, right? Conscripts on both sides, criminals pulled out of jails and prisons on both sides, and all fucking whatever else, plus civilians on both sides, right? Those weapons were all made to end lives, right? And they don't get value out of it unless they use them for that. So that's what they're using all these old fucking absolutely piece of shit weapons and weapon systems, right? The oldest stocks of fucking ammunition, everything that is basically a joke to wage war with when you have other items of high end fucking stuff. That's what both sides have done this whole way, right? So they when they had Russia go in there just soft enough to make it appear like, oh, Ukraine has this fucking shot. And then if the media lies all the time and the governments are lying all the time, right, a bunch of people start to fucking believe it. And now we got a situation here where a big chunk of the West, the ones who are not wise to how big of liars their governments and their medias are, right? They actually believe Russians are all these evil fuckers and that there is a chance to defeat them. But the propaganda complexes and the lying fuckers in these governments do a double fucking deal on them that one has to cancel the other out. If you have a chance to beat Russia by arming Ukraine with shit fucking weapons, antique garbage, right? Putting together a hodgepodge fucking equipment, military equipment list for a fucking little shithole nation, right? Where the logistics and repair and everything is basically off the charts, complicated, difficult, and really nowhere near, right, the level of uh, any other country or NATO in terms of fixing their equipment and keeping it supplied, right? They got all these different guns, taking all this different fucking shit from all these different countries. All the different tanks have all different parts and different engines and run on different fuels and all of this fucking just the biggest garbage fucking system that there is. But if there's a possibility to put together a ragtag antique fucking piece of shit army fueled by a bunch of morons in Ukraine to stop Russia, well, then there's no threat whatsoever to any of the other NATO nations anywhere in Europe or anybody else from Russia, right? And really, there never was, right? If there was an actual threat from Russia to all of the NATO nations, all those nations in Europe would have been paying every year to maintain their military and defense capabilities. But because there was no threat and they all knew it, and all Russia was doing was getting more and more integrated with the West, right? All those pipelines, like they did NATO and Biden and all them, they destroyed Nord Stream, right? That was Russia coming together with everybody, it was getting interconnected, and they were becoming part of Europe every year, closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, right? Especially with the Germans, right? All the gas that's everything that has led to the prosperity in Europe in the last several decades, right? At least last few decades, this it's all the Russian energy, right? Russian energy is what allowed Germany to do as well as they have done. Cheap, reliable Russian energy, right? And the more you get interconnected like that, and everything got interconnected financially, right? You see, what do they have? So many hundreds of billions in Russian assets frozen in all of these Western banks, right? They're putting their money all there, all those billion, they were putting all that money in there because they were integrating part of the system, right? You couldn't really ask for Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union to do better by the West and the world than what they did, right? They provided really cheap energy and really big prosperity, and they stepped back and let the Western nations fuck around and do whatever the fuck they wanted. And they helped us in Afghanistan. They sat back and uh, let us go into fucking Iraq and do whatever, right? They weren't arming the Iraqis on the other side and shit like the cooperation warfare that went on after World War II was, right? Korea was a entirely cooperative warfare. Vietnam, entirely cooperative warfare, right? They're back in one side, we're back in the other side. And we're both telling lies like crazy about our involvement in it, and both coming over and getting directly involved in it, right? Oh, first we're going to send some advisors in. Oh, then here comes the troops and this and that. Oh, well, we're just sending some planes in for them to fly. Well, here now they're Russians are up in those planes flying them, right? Same shit they're trying to do now. Well, we could send in some F-16s, right? Which is a fucking junk plane in the modern age of air defense, right? The only thing you're going to do with F-16 sent into Ukraine is get embarrassed like all of the Western tanks sent in, right? The fucking tank warfare is also obsolete, right? It's just a big joke, everything that's going on over there, but it's the same type of cooperation. And especially if you put your Ukrainians into the F-16s, they have no shot to fucking fly them. They have no shot to uh, have air bases in Ukraine to be able to take off and land and do maintenance and fucking everything on the F-16. No shot whatsoever, right? But they would have to try something like, having air bases in other NATO countries outside of Ukraine and then flying into the Ukraine. And if they did that, they'd try to start saying, well, it's still Ukrainian pilots. But even if they did that, which should not be tolerated because it's a act, that's a warplane taking off from a NATO nation attacking the Russian military, right? It's a direct NATO, what they're cooperating to uh, avoid here is have it happen in this confined non-NATO nation done by supposedly non-NATO troops, even though there's all types of mercenaries at least and other things already involved in it. But even if they could launch, let's say, out of Romania or Poland or something, F-16s, and if they still tried to put Ukrainian pilots in there, they couldn't fly them worth of shit. They'd all be shot down very, very quickly trying to operate on the front and provide air cover. And then if that began, right, of course, with just like you've seen the Russian pilots flying in Korea and whatever, right? There'd start being some NATO pilots or them hiring former NATO pilots as mercenaries to come in. And of course, they're going to fly everything and be more confident and better than the Ukrainians ever could be getting put into them. But F-16s would get shot down fucking like crazy all over the place. It'd be very ineffective. It'd be more embarrassment, right, to the West, which I'm thinking right now has to be part of the thing too, because there's another thing about this. Right? All of this relates into Taiwan and China as well, right? And the shit that you see going on now is about setting up for something else even further down the line, right? And of course, the Korea that was already cooperating is set up. That's ready to go too. And then the Taiwan China thing, that's ready to go. And then also what they set up after World War II, the Israel and the Middle East shit, again, is getting real hot, right? They got everything is ready to go, right? When war breaks out, there'd be a big war out of multiple fucking areas, right? It'd be a real world war, fairly quickly. But they're coming out here and like trying to show some shit, right, in this war to relate to what's going on in Taiwan and the China thing, right? Being depleted on weaponry, which is, to me, I think it's a smokescreen of bullshit, right? How can you even fucking begin to believe that all of the world powers, all of the NATO powers, and especially the United States of America, that's been out front from 1991 on, head and shoulders the biggest power in the world, right? How could you not have enough ammunition and equipment to supply a little fucking shithole country like Ukraine to fight for a long time, right? We've been hearing this shit they're running out of weapons and stuff already, all the old shit that they've been given, right? Within 1 year, you don't have enough stockpiles of shit to even fight a little small front. That's what this is. It's a small fucking front, right? It's nothing big scale, right? When you're supposed to be prepared, right, as a NATO bloc to defend some country and participate in some super large conflict, but yet here we are and it's broadcast nonstop by the fucking liars in government and the media. Oh, we don't have any weapons, and oh, our ability to produce weapons and shells is outstripped by what the little shithole Ukrainian army, which is fucking, it's nothing like a real conflict would be, their little shithole army. And they're using more than all NATO nations in the USA, and can't everybody can fucking produce, right? They're it's a joke, right? It's trying to set up like to me it seems like to show some weakness, right? To because right, what they wanted to set up for later is, oh well, China went after Taiwan because they knew that we were low on this and that and this and that, whatever, because we fucking told everybody everywhere, but I think it's a load of fucking shit. Just like all the load of shit they say Russia is running out of ammunition and missiles and this and that. They've said Russia has been running out of almost the entire war. It was only a couple months into the war, and then you start hearing the first lies about it, right? It's never been any truth to any of it. Just like all of the different ailments and shit that Putin is dying with, this and that. He must be Superman or something because he's overcome every fucking disease and ailment known to fucking mankind and overcome imminent fucking death thousands of times, according to what these fuckers pump out in their stories, right? But Russia is easily producing and had a ton of munitions stored up for a large conflict, right? Even though they weren't actively uh, trying to be a big power in the world, and the United States was running around and doing everything, they still maintain very large stocks of weaponry, and they've always been one of the biggest arms providers to all of the other countries, right? Russian arms suppliers supply a lot of weapons and technology and stuff to China, to India, Iran, all kinds of places, right? Tons of people buy their defense stuff from Russia, right? It's a massive producer, right? It's got all the energy it needs and all the resources that it needs and all of the technology and manpower and everything that it needs to be a big producer of everything, right? So I think there's a ruse being set up fucking to lead on into later about all the USA and NATO and the entire West and everybody being depleted of all of these different weapons and abilities. All right, to me it's a fucking joke, but anyways, the fucking conflict was going on in Ukraine, and like I said, it was a cooperation thing from the start, right? Because there is no fucking war experts anywhere in the world, not in the USA, not even Millie, none of these fuckers prior to this, right? None of them would go on record anywhere saying anything other than Russia would be able to take Ukraine at will in a very short period of time if they wanted to. Everybody in the world said the same fucking thing before this happened, right? But of course, it happened in a way that proved everybody in the world wrong on all sides, right? And they report about some Russian dissent and bullshit, right? They got the whole fake Prigozhin fucking thing that was basically one big giant psyop on people on both sides, right? But that's all the horse shit fucking deal there. But there's a lot of real deal motherfuckers in Russia that know the capabilities that Russia has, and they completely understand that they could have and they should have taken Kiev in a very short period of time, and that during this entire duration of the war, that they could have and they should have went harder and taken the gloves off and actually tried to win and actually tried to stop the conflict, but they haven't, right? That's the issue that they're having in Russia. It's not with people don't support the war or the reason that they're putting out on their side, right? They all know that ethnic Russians have been being genocided, that the Russian language is being stamped out. No, people aren't free to speak the Russian language there. They're big on trying to protect the Russian language and the Russian people from complete monsters, and they do it under Nazi shit, right? That's another part of the cooperation, right? These fuckers, the Azov Battalion, these fuckers wear the open Nazi symbolism all over the place. And it's to the point you can go on the internet right now and you can Google in, and there's Zelensky shaking hands and doing this and that. And they're like, they can't be a Nazi regime because Zelensky is Jewish. Well, here's pictures of this Jewish guy shaking hands with these fuckers with Nazi symbology and shit symbols all over their stuff, right? The United States government, had labeled some of these groups, military groups in Ukraine, as Nazis by our government prior to this, right? It's common knowledge. Yes, they're all Nazis. Yes, there's Zelensky with all these fuckers in Nazi symbolism, right? That's part of the cooperation because of what that Nazi symbology does to the Russian people, right? The Russian people are seeing this crazy ass fucking regime that's illegitimate after a coup go behind all these Nazi symbologies and start trying to eradicate the Russian people and the Russian language, right? It's just like the setup over here, the USA, right? It has to, for this to happen like this without having a big amount of people in government and the population going crazy against it, it has to be led by Democrats. Republicans could not lead this. Donald Trump could not have led us into this conflict. Joe Biden can, because he's a Democrat, because of what it was set up in 2016 on, right? And over there, right, they're set up the same way, right? Because what the Nazis did to them, how many they lost, how much they had to sacrifice in World War II, and all of that, right? And then, of course, later on down the line, they send in Leopard tanks and all these tanks from Germany with the fucking Iron Cross on them and their fucking big cat names, right? After what's going on, because it's a fucking setup. It's a fucking setup. Those people in Russia, right? They're up for fighting and defending against being attacked by that. But their problem is they know, and it's spread. There's been a lot of generals and higher up people replacing the Russian military because they fucking know too. They say, we as Russia, we're not trying to win this. What the fuck are we doing? This is not war. This is bullshit. This front line here, all along, everywhere in the East, it shouldn't even exist. The only reason it exists is because we are not trying to win this war and to stop this conflict, right? And this is fucking should be clear. I watch a lot of people covering the battle, though, and none of them fucking see anything. And if they do question it a little bit here and there, they believe a bullshit excuse, right? Here's the deal: Ukraine is cut basically in half. It's not quite in half. There's more to the west than there is to the east. But all the fighting is going on in the east, on the other side of the Dnieper River, right? There's only a handful of bridges along the Dnieper River. These bridges are required for all of the logistics of NATO and Ukraine has to pass over it. For all of that equipment that gets over there to the front lines and everything is fighting, all of it has to go across these bridges. Russia has always had, and it would only take them one day to drop all these bridges. Immediately, there would be no supply lines to where the front lines of the battle are, right? They could drop every fucking bridge from Zaporozhye all the way up through Kiev, the whole length of the deal. They could drop them all in one fucking single day. There would be no supply lines coming, no more ammunition for whatever weapons they got there now. No more anything else, right? If it is coming, it'll be small scale stuff coming across fucking in little boats and different shit, having to put up pontoon bridges, which you would then, once you drop the bridges, you would target those the other makeshift bridges they put up, afterwards, because you're really trying to fucking stop all this, right? But they won't fucking even do it, right? And at the beginning, I started telling people they're going crazy, saying, "Oh man, Russia's losing," because they were withdrawing. They didn't have enough troops to be on the other side of the river in Kherson, and they didn't have enough troops to capture the Kiev or Kharkiv area and keep it, right? So they had to withdraw. They did not lose very many people withdrawing, and they killed a shit ton of Ukrainians that were attacking, but they backed off and they gave up this Kharkiv area, and they came back across the river, very organized withdrawal. They didn't leave fucking men and equipment and everything stranded, or even citizens. All the Russian speaking citizens that wanted out, they got across the fucking river too, right? All the troops, they killed shit tons of fucking Ukrainians that were attacking, but they withdrew and pulled back to what is a manageable line. In the south, it's all that Dnieper River, which now has changed after the destruction of the dam, which, right, it's another cooperative fucking thing where both sides say the other side did it, right? And then the the reality is, I don't even want to go into that too hard on that, but that's just some fucking bullshit there is too, right? Because, right, everybody knows that the Ukrainians were shooting. The United States gave them uh, HIMAR weaponry, and they were shooting load after load from those HIMARS onto that fucking same damn bridge structure, right? For a long time, testing out and seeing what their capabilities are, right? If they had enough oomph in those HIMARS, that fucking bridge would have been knocked down by the Ukrainians a long time ago, because they've hit it over and over and over and over and over. And then they're pulling the same shit too. And at least the news reports that way, with the biggest power plant in Europe, the Zaporozhye power plant there, where Russia had took control over it and has had control over it, right? And then the news in the West constantly says that, oh, Ukraine and Russia have taken turns blaming each other for shelling this plant. Russia's always controlled it. It's only been Russian troops inside of this plant since the conflict got going. Russia has never once attacked their own fucking plant that they control, or attacked their own troops controlling the plant. Every time that it has been attacked, it has been Ukrainians attacking the plant, right? They play it out to say, oh, both sides accuse the other side, right? But it's just complete garbage, just like the Nord Stream thing, right? Russia did not blow up their own fucking power line, then blow up their biggest peace carrot that they have, right? Because reality is, everybody in Germany and the EU and everywhere in the area benefits greatly from having that. If Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 were running full blast, their prosperity is guaranteed, right? With it being destroyed, they're all harmed, right? But Russia is harmed now, cannot sell gas through those pipelines, and doesn't have the peace carrot, right, for negotiations. Nord Stream 2, the completion of that and the end of this conflict and getting that line running full was one of Russia's main things, right? Because it benefit, let's make a peace. You're losing out big time not getting the gas. We're losing out too. Let's fucking end this thing. Let's get this shit back going. Let's get your economies healing and whatever, right? But it was taken out by the Western groups, right? Because they don't want peace there, and it's been a cooperation thing too, right? On that, I would go so far as saying Russia knows exactly fucking how it all happened, right? But they're not telling everybody exactly fucking how it happened, like they could, right? And of course, the U.S. and NATO side, well, they all know how it happened, and know that NATO attacked NATO basically out of the whole deal, and they know that they can't do a real investigation and really tell people what the fuck happened, even though so many people know, right? People all over the United States of America know the West, Biden in particular, did Nord Stream, right? People all over Europe know that. Probably the majority in Germany know it. Poland, they know it. They all know it, right? But they're like, well, let's kind of say it's technically an attack on Russia, not an attack on all of the German people and the people of the EU. It's an attack on the nation of Germany, number one, and then the pocketbooks of every German citizen and every citizen in the EU and in the world, right? Every American had their pockets in wallets and purses, money stolen out of them because of that Nord Stream terror attack, right? Because we all of a sudden started having to pay much higher gas prices than we should because we got so much gas, it should be fucking dirt cheap for us here. But when all of a sudden we have to replace the gas that should have been coming through the Nord Stream lines with liquefied natural gas, and there's add all the transport costs and all the other bullshit on it to send it over there, right? Our energy markets all got spiked off of that too. And the Europeans all got raped off of the deal too. And then the Russians, everybody fucking got raped out of the deal, right? But it's a big cooperation thing too, right? And it also falls in line with these scumbag leaders of today. They're climate change bullshit, right? They want to shut down fossil fuel and energy as much as possible. And then the conflict, the killing people and setting up for bigger conflicts to kill even more people. This is the stated goal. The leadership of the United States of America, all of NATO, the UN, all these fuckers, their stated goal is massive depopulation. You can it comes straight out of the fucking vice president of the USA's mouth, Kamala Harris, right? The more population reduction we can achieve, then the more clean air and clean water kids can drink and breathe, right? I mean, they literally say this, right? They go to all of their little shindigs in Davos and this and that, all the world economic fuckers, right? They openly say it everywhere about they'd like to get rid of billions and billions of people, massive depopulation, right? And it's all in the name of climate change and all this other bullshit, right? And then when COVID happened, right, that's exactly what they did. Everybody everywhere, they cooperated to do their very best to cause food scarcity and energy scarcity, right? And then all of the policymakers, right? Joe Biden's done absolutely everything he can to shut off American energy. American energy should be 100% supplying America and making massive amounts of money on exports, right? Just like Russia's does, right? Russia produces absolutely everything they need, and they're a massive exporter, right? Well, we should be doing the same thing here, but every policy that he's ever been about has been about reducing uh, American energy output and causing energy scarcity in America, even where there should absolutely be none anywhere at any time, is how abundant the energy is that they want to shut off, of course, to all of us, right? And then Europe and all their leaders is doing the same thing. They went so crazy as to turning off nuclear plants, which don't even produce the same type of pollution as the fossil fuels. But they even went on the rampage against them. Right, the biggest gas field in the world has been shut down and decommissioned. Right, and they're trying to shut off all their coal stuff, and they say, hey, you might have to go through intermittent power outages and shit constantly, but because we're shutting down this coal, it's what we have to do to save the environment, right? So they shut down a handful of fucking coal plants in the UK and some other nations in the mainland Europe, right? And at the same time they shut those down, over 3 times as many are put on in China and India, right? For every one Western coal plant that gets shut down, probably at least 5 are fired up in the eastern part of the world at the very same time, right? So you're not going anywhere. Oh, yes, this is a vital piece of what's happening. They are just opening them up, brand new ones that are commissioned for the next 50, 100 years easy to burn day after fucking day after day after day. When you're shutting down your little one, it does absolutely nothing with these 5 at a time that are getting turned on for every one that you're shutting down. And while you're doing that, your citizens are being raped for the cost of fucking energy. Well, they're getting cheap everything over there, right? Because they're using all of the tried and true, cheap and effective ways to produce power. Well, we're starting to shun it, right? But they were even going after the nuclear sources of power, trying to shut them down, which may be part of right, if you know you're going to intentionally start a wider scale conflict that Ukraine is sitting there endangering us all, is threatening to do, right? And they've got it set up so that that's exactly what they can do, right? All they have to do is pull one little event in any cooperative manner or false flag fucking type of deal, one stupid story of something, right? And next thing you know, oh, Article 5s, and oh, we're all at war with Russia. And now, for real, nobody can talk about it because we're going to come and get you if you do. And all the other stuff, everything they've been setting up, it's all setting up together. Right? 2014, set up for this. 2016, the election in Russia, Bush, all set up for this. All the killing fucking going on, fucking in there, the separate bullshit of sending in weapons and what, setting up for this, right? Now they got this and it's setting up and it's connected right into fucking Taiwan and China fucking deal, right? And could easily connect into the Korea outbreak, which would also be another front, right? I'm sure that even if that when Taiwan goes off, right, that China, if they have any fucking idea about anything, they would want a second front. They would push. They should send a shitload of troops and equipment, assistance, and everything, and push North Korea to start attacking South Korea at the same time, because you want to have 2 different fronts, right? Make it a lot easier to take Taiwan if you're also the Allied forces, all that they're having to fucking also fight up in Korea, right? And they could easily make that happen, right? So that those are probably connected together. And then, of course, the Middle East is fucking set up to be a fucking super keg of fucking bullshit, right? At any time, too, right? So whenever there is big war movements going, they'll probably all be going anywhere else, right? But that's what all this is setting up for, too. And it's setting up through using a ton of fucking lies. Russia is not weak. The stuff that we have seen out of Russia is not what Russia is capable of. And also, NATO is not fucking weak either, right? The stuff that we've seen NATO provide and participate in and help the Ukrainians do, it's not near what NATO could really do. What Russia's done is not near what Russia could really do. It's all pure cooperation going on, but it's setting up for bigger shit, right? And they got the Belarus angle in there and all the other bullshit, right? They even set us up here to say, oh, these crazy Wagner fuckers pulled some coup. Those fuckers couldn't have got anywhere, any type of real coup, and they never would have made it down that fucking highway. The Air Forces, right? They never would have shot down any fucking anything, right? The Air Force of Russia would destroy any fucking column of Wagner trying to actually do anything from so far away that Wagner never would have seen anything coming. They would have never seen it. They would have never heard it. They'd just been incinerated, right? Their columns would just be fucking stopped and incinerated all down the line, right? Because the Russian Air Force can do that shit from that fucking far away with that much force and total accuracy, right? And there is no air defense or Air Force opposition to any of their fucking shit in their own country, right? If that was a real deal, right, they would have been knocked the fuck out. But they set us up with that. Now they got the Wagners over in Belarus. Who knows what these Wagners can do? They're so crazy. They try to take fucking Moscow. They were within so many kilometers of Moscow. It's just all bullshit. It's a giant psyop on everybody. It's a psyop against the Western people, and it's a psyop against Russia by these fucking idiots in coordination with each other, right? But now they got them in Belarus. So if they want to start some other fucking bullshit, all they got to do is fucking say, hey, we're going to give some Wagner fucking idiots or a false flag fucking and say it's Wagner idiots. Say, all of a sudden, this group of Russian fucking Wagnerites or whatever has went into the Baltic states or Poland or something, right? Which would never fucking happen, right? Just like NATO, none of the NATO nations have ever been in any danger from Russia, and they all knew it. That's why they didn't want to spend any weapons. Because if Russia and NATO really go to war and they really do this shit for real, right, everybody loses, so they won't, right? And if NATO and Russia goes to war right now, for real, right, for real, total war, right, there will be nuclear exchanges. Everybody will be fucking destroyed, fucking everywhere. Europe will be leveled. Most of the American cities will be leveled. Most of the Russian cities will be leveled. Of course, the elites will be the ones in their bunkers, and everybody left above ground will fucking die horrible fucking deaths, right? But that's why nobody's ever been scared of Russia. And Russia's never really been scared of anybody else either. That's a bullshit that they're, see, NATO wasn't supposed to expand, but NATO keeps expanding towards Russia, right? But the reality is, when they say, well, Russia's in a lot more danger if Ukraine becomes NATO and they get uh, forward deployed missiles right on their, that close to them, right? No matter how it goes, when anybody starts fucking launching nukes, it's set up to the point that everybody gets destroyed. So nobody's going to do that, right? It doesn't really endanger them to have NATO moving that way. And NATO is never at any time in danger from Russia. Never has been. Right? Russia's not been in any danger for NATO, and NATO's never been in any danger of Russia. It's a fucking game, cooperative lie, bullshit that goes on the other side, right? And they're good at managing conflicts together. And that's all they've done since World War II is play good cop, bad cop on all the different sides of all the different fucking conflicts going on, right? How long have both Russia and the U.S. been sitting in Syria? And they don't ever really get into any fucking shit against each other, right? They cooperate to play good cop, bad cop, and fucking the bullshit that's going on, right? Then the same thing is happening right here in Ukraine. It's more cooperation, right? Korea was cooperation. Vietnam was cooperation, right? They helped us out on the fucking Afghanistan shit, and the whole Middle East area has been cooperation. Syria shit, all cooperation, the divide and conquer stuff, right? Even within the Muslim world, they had them divided up, Sunni and Shiites, and well, the U.S. will back this fucking groups, these groups of them, and Russia will back these other fucking groups of them, and all of that. And now that's kind of going away, right? Because when you get the real setup of what they want to have happen, and all these conflicts blast off everywhere else, you don't want the Muslims anymore to be infighting amongst each other. You want them united so that they can give a real go against the nuclear powered Israel and everybody else who will be fucking involved from outside in that theater of war, right? So everything they got going here is to set us up for a big European theater of war breaking out of Ukraine, two theaters in Asia, fucking North Korea and a Taiwan, and then the Middle East. And of course, there'll be other fucking shit will flare up different places just as well, right? I'm sure they'll be fighting all over Africa, and they'll try to bring fighting to the United States and whatever, the Americas, right? And if they do a good job at it, then they'll manage to cooperate entirely through it, and there'll be no big nuclear exchanges or anything, and it'll be fought with conventional weapons. Anyways, I talk way too long, and I gotta go make dinner, but this is all some fucking bullshit, and nobody anywhere on any side is getting the truth out of anybody, and absolutely everybody, no matter where you live, should be against your own leaders and against this conflict in all ways, because this shit benefits nobody and endangers everybody, and there is no one wrong guy or one wrong group involved in it. Every single person and group and nation involved in it is equally just as wrong and equally led by just as big a monsters as everybody else involved. And anyways, with that said, please like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you think that's something you should do, and have a nice day.